What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. In today's episode, by popular request, we're going to be moving into the Marksman Rifle category and covering the M8A1. And just a quick note before we get into this video, I wanted to announce that I have partnered with True Game Data to provide and update all of the multiplayer stats on the site. This is an excellent tool to use to compare stats on weapons directly, side by side. And while I wouldn't consider it to be a full replacement for my gun guide series, it is a really great resource to use if you just want to quickly check up on some stats or compare weapons side by side directly. So if you're interested in that, I will leave a link down below. I've got most of the Black Ops 7 multiplayer stats up. There's still a little bit of polishing to do there, but for the most part, they're there and the comparison tool is active. And starting it off, as always, let's have a look at our rate of fire. And this gun is a 4-round burst, and our rate of fire within each burst is roughly 896 rounds per minute, with a roughly 150 millisecond delay between each burst. Now, I say roughly because these are hand-tested values due to the fact that they don't properly display rate of fire values for burst guns in the game. So they may be off by a few milliseconds or a few rounds per minute here or there, but this at least gets you really close to the ballpark for our time to kill values, which with this gun, it's going to be a 4 to 5 shot kill. And with that 4-shot kill, which is a 1-burst kill, we're killing in just over 200 milliseconds, which is a very fast time to kill in this game. For reference, that's faster than all of the full auto SMGs right up close. Now, if you don't get that 1-burst kill though, your time to kill spikes pretty quickly. With a 5-shot kill, it's going to take you 418 milliseconds to kill, which is quite slow. Now, when it comes to headshots, without the damage barrel, you have to hit literally every bullet to the head to get a 3-shot kill. So generally, headshots aren't really worth going for unless you're going for camos. However, with the headshot barrel, you now only need 1 headshot mixed in with 2 body shots to get that 3-shot kill. Now, even then, I would say headshots are often not worth it unless you're going for camos, simply because we get a great time to kill by getting a 1-burst kill, and I would rather aim for consistency, just aiming center mass, trying to get that 1-burst kill, rather than trying to aim for the head, and more often than not, missing the odd bullet or 2 here or there because you're aiming for a small target, and then when you do that, you need another burst to kill, which then just spikes your time to kill potential. In either case, let's get into our range values, and as you can see here, we have a very impressive 4-shot kill range. At 48 meters, that's going to take care of the vast majority of gunfights you'll tend to find in this game. Also, our bullet velocity is excellent at 850 meters per second, giving us a really good hit scan range at 42.5 meters. So in my eyes, velocity and range are totally fine as is. However, you could of course use the long barrel, velocity barrel, or hybrid barrel to increase those values. I generally don't worry about that though, personally. And then finally, with rapid fire, if you use that, it will increase our rate of fire within the burst up to roughly 1,000 rounds per minute, but based on my testing, it doesn't appear to affect your burst delay, or if it does so by such a small amount that it's not really measurable. So it really just seems to be impacting rate of fire within each burst. And if you use rapid fire, you will be reducing your range and velocity values by 10%. As for hardcore game modes, this gun will be a 1-bullet kill at any range. So not just a 1-burst kill, but literally just 1 bullet in the burst needs to hit them in order to get a 1-shot kill anywhere in the body at any range. So very good in hardcore game modes. Although with that burst delay, that might put you at a slight disadvantage compared to some of the full autos that can also 1-shot kill. Then after that, taking a look at Hipfire, well, we do have a better than average Hipfire spread for a marksman rifle. At the end of the day, it's still not great, and with it being a burst gun as well, it does take away some of that control you would otherwise have while hip firing. And as a result, I only reserve burst firing for like desperate situations when I'm practically touching the enemy player. Then after that, let's have a look at our recoil. And while the recoil overall is quite minimal and it almost recenters after every burst, not fully, but it almost recenters after each burst, at the same time, there is some recoil there. It will kick upward to the right very consistently. And if you are trying to pick somebody off at really long ranges that's using cover, it can be a bit tricky to get all of your bullets in a burst to land on target due to this recoil that you see. So it's accurate, but it may not be quite as pinpoint accurate as you'd like it to be without attachments at least. Then after that, let's have a look at our handling stats. And we do have the best handling in the marksman rifle category across the board. However, even in saying that, our aim down sight time, for instance, is quite slow when you put it up against something like an assault rifle. So that is a factor to consider as well when creating your builds. I often find myself having to lean toward attachments that improve the aim down sight speed. Then after that, let's have a look at our reload time, which is not too bad. It's 1.93 seconds. That's good for a marksman rifle, but still not like amazingly fast or anything. You do have to plan your reloads out a little bit. Or you could use one of the magazine attachments to either improve our reload speed or improve our magazine capacity. Next, let's have a look at our mobility stats. And while it's pretty standard when it comes to our base walking speed and our sprint speed, It is a little bit better than the other marksman rifles when it comes to our aim walking speed, although this value is still quite slow overall. So without attachments, you're not going to be strafing like crazy in a gunfight or anything. Now, one final base stat that I wanted to look at here that I don't normally cover for like SMGs, assault rifles, and LMGs, but it turns out it's really important for marksman rifles. This is the amount of flinch that you receive with this gun in your hand. This is going to be much higher than you'd experience with like even an assault rifle in your hand. You're going to be seeing more than twice the amount of flinch, and that can absolutely affect the outcome of fights and throw you off target. So it's not a bad idea, if you can squeeze it in, it's not a bad idea to improve your flinch resistance on this gun. However, in saying that, it's at least the best in the marksman rifle category at 0.45 newtons. And there we go, those are all of the base stats. Now I want to talk a bit about the prestige attachment, which is the MFS Striker Tactical Stock. And with this stock, it really nicely improves your hipfire and tactical stance spreads. It slightly improves our sprint to fire and aim down sight speed, but it makes our flinch resistance noticeably worse, and it increases the amount of recoil we experience as well. And taking a look at all of this combined, even though it helps with hipfire and tac stance, I still don't think it's good enough in those areas to really rely on that as a playstyle. And so even with a maxed out tac stance build while using this attachment and any others that improve our tactical stance, I'm still not a big fan of it, so I don't really like the attachment there. Plus, it doesn't really help our handling stats all that much. And with a gun like this, you don't want to be hurting your recoil too much, and you definitely don't want to be massively increasing the amount of flinch that you see while using this, which you do with this attachment. And as a result, I have no intention of ever using this attachment. I think it's actually pretty terrible on this gun. And that's why this will be the first gun guide so far where I'm not going to be sharing a build with this because I just don't recommend using it. But speaking of builds, let's get into a few excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. And the first one I've got is my nice balanced stealth all-around build for public matches. With this reason, the ELO sights, just so we get a little more precision out of our aim. We've got the Recoil suppressor on there to keep us off the radar while also slightly improving our recoil. We have the horizontal recoil underbarrel. This one helps straighten up that recoil plot nicely because that horizontal recoil actually gets in the way a fair amount, I've noticed. We have the aim down sight grip to get our aim down sight time in a more reasonable place at 265 milliseconds. And then finally, we're topping this off with the control stock to help with recoil as well. And as you can see, there are some really nice recoil benefits here. Not only are those bullets grouped a lot tighter together, especially within each burst itself, you can also see it's not drifting horizontally nearly as much, so that makes it much easier to control that way. So I personally really like that build. I find it's just a nice all-arounder for this gun. It's very accurate, easy to control, and good for getting those one burst kills while staying off the radar. However, if I want to go for peak accuracy, this is where my gunfighter build comes in. Now with this, we're using the ELO sight, the compensator, the long barrel, which is overkill, but I'm using it anyway. We once again have that horizontal recoil underbarrel grip. For our rear grip, we're using the G7 launch grip, which helps with first shot recoil and recoil recentering. It helps a lot with recoil on this gun. We once again have the control stock. We've got the 3 milliwatt laser that's going to be helping with recoil stabilization, and it gives us a bit of a boost to damage range. And then finally, we're using buffer springs as our fire mod to really get the best recoil possible. And you can see here, there is now very little recoil with this gun. Also with that range boost that we see, our one burst kill potential is now 64 meters, and you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a practical line of sight beyond that range in 6v6. So that just means if your aim is on point, you can absolutely shut down lanes and dominate with this if you're getting those consistent one burst kills. Now, in saying that, sometimes I want to be a lot more aggressive, or if I'm playing on smaller maps, for instance, I don't need that level of accuracy, and instead, I would rather go with my aggression build. So with this, we're once again using that Recoil suppressor to keep us off the radar and help a bit with recoil control. We've got the Quick Step foregrip, which is going to be helping with our mobility stats. We once again have that instinct rear grip, which is going to help with our aim down sight speed. We've got the Swift Line stock, which is the one that helps with our aim walking speed, and combined with the underbarrel, that gives us a very respectable aim walking speed at 3.8 meters per second, so you can actually strafe very viably in gunfights. And then finally, we're topping this one off with rapid fire, so we get that really, really fast rate of fire within each burst. And I find that just helps with the one burst potential, at least up close, where recoil doesn't come into the equation as much. Because with this, we do see more recoil than the base. It definitely climbs more. That's expected, but it's also fine within the ranges I'm going to be using this. We also do see a loss. We also do see a bit of a loss to our range and bullet velocity. But again, that's fine. We're not stretching our ranges out with this one. And honestly, I find the iron sight to be just fine on this as well. While I often prefer using an ELO sight, I really don't mind using the iron sight on this. So this is a nice option if you want to be a bit more on the aggressive side. And there we have it. That's finally going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the M8A1. And when it comes to my thoughts on this gun, I would say I really enjoy using it. I do find it to be a fun gun to use. It does absolutely have some potential to it as well. But at the same time, I often find myself really starved for attachments on this. I feel like it really relies heavily on a lot of attachments, since it can often use some help with recoil. The handling stats really aren't great, so you probably want to use an attachment to help with aim down sight speed. But then your movement speed stats aren't very good. Your flinch stats also not very good. There's just a lot of areas where I'd like to see improvement. And I just often feel like I can't get enough attachments on this to really make up for those downsides so that it can be really competitive against the assault rifles in the game, for instance. So I don't want to say this gun is bad. I definitely enjoy using it. I've found success with it. But at the same time, I do think it's lacking when you put it up against something like the typical assault rifle in this game. Now, of course, those are just my opinions on the M8, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gun in those comments down below. Also, if you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.